And welcome everybody to round 5 of the OverPower Cup, coming to you from Columbus, Ohio. With me is Phil the King Keffer. How you doing today, Phil?
I'm doing great, Joe. It's always great to be back in here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we are doing these commentaries a little bit after the fact. So this is day 2 of commentary for us. So we are getting up and we're starting with a match of David McMillan playing newcomer Josh Mills. I believe this is only Josh's second tournament. These both these players are jumping on the stream, and we're gonna get a view of David McMillan's innovative milling deck that he's doing. Phil, you've played against this deck in a practice game, if I remember right.
I did. After Champ of Champs, I played against a previous version that I think had more cards deck specifically for milling. But I think he's gone and it's evolved into more of like a universally just like defensive deck that can play lots of different unique cards so he doesn't dupe as much and just like plays a bigger deck in the effect in hopes of like outlasting the opponent, like a bit of a
Yeah.
mill type of.
So I know a big part of his deck. You'll notice that Dave discarded an image inducer artifact and activated his home base, the Odin's Vault. Odin's Vault costs 2 deck building points to put on your team. It allows you to pick 3 unique activators, not including the image inducer. You can't do that one, but any of the other ones. So Dave has picked the Pim particles. That'll allow him, he's going to want to get that in play as soon as possible. That'll allow him to say that both players will draw either 6, 8, or 10 cards on their turn. So this is pretty good for Dave. So Dave bets 1. Looks like Josh Mills is a little worried about something. He bets 1 and runs. So Dave doesn't get his Pim particles in play. They'll each draw 8. But this puts Dave in a position where that essentially is just, in Dave's mind, a mill 8 cards. He's still got 6 of them placed, but the idea is he just wants to get through these hands and make the opponent kind of chew up as much of their deck as possible. That's the strategy Dave's going for.
Yeah, and I think that
Oh.
I believe Josh could have placed that negate on his home base, which going to run might have been a good idea. I know some of those home base placing things are kind of new to me. So
Yep, and that might just be what it is. He might be a little new to remembering that he can place a main deck special to that slot. So Dave gets usually his deck is designed very dupe, very much so he doesn't dupe, but he variant snags him this game, and he gets 2 duplicate 4 multis and a duplicate 7 strength.
yeah, Dave's building up what he likes to call the war chest,
Hmm.
and as we all know, Dave has a tendency to be difficult to play against because of all of the place cards that he gets down there, and then he tends to play if he can.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave's gonna get that Pim particles out as his very first move. We know that's gonna happen. So he's now gonna start the game of making both players draw 10 cards. And Dave's war chest strategy is he usually tries to not place any of the cards that he knows he has 3 of. He'll run cards that other people don't tend to run as much, and just try to hopefully not dupe when he starts getting people to draw 10. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
Josh had a lot
well,
of activators there. He runs again, so he ends up 2 down. Dave's ends up, I think, just 2 to the completed pile. Josh played an interesting card from the Goblin Queen. It's a proactive, what we call a KL. So Dave gives us the 10 flash. Both people are drawing 10 cards.
I think Dave
That
ran that time. Joe.
the what?
I think Dave was the one that ran that time actually. So some they both should have some at the top and the bottom.
Oh no, you're right. I see it. The name is blocking it just a little bit. Okay, so Dave ran away. The no negates, or sorry, the no any heroes will come out, which actually can affect Dave. It doesn't look like Dave's playing a battle site. And then Dave gets no cards with the word negate, which will affect the Reavers if a negate is drawn. Dave looks
Dave is
like he's
duping
unfortunately
like
getting a
crazy.
lot of
Oh,
dupes.
wow. Yeah. Yeah. And to go back to that Pim particles, I mean, that's like an absolute key card in Dave's deck because making people draw 10 is going to get them through their decks a lot faster. People are playing 56 to maybe cards, whereas Dave's deck is a solid 25 cards. So those that pin particles, especially with the 40-minute time, really important for Dave.
Yeah, for sure. You just start to think of it like, if you play four hands drawing 10, you've basically drawn through an entire fifth hand, and a 56 card deck is only seven hands. So it's reducing seven playable hands for a minimally constructed deck to six plus. Probably like five and a half, really. You're gonna get that first hand at eight. It really puts the other player on a clock really quickly. Very, very interesting strategy. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how the game plays out.
It's nice to see Josh playing X World as a battle site. I certainly got an incredible amount of good cards in it. It hasn't seen a ton of play yet. The one per decks are kind of tricky. Certainly, the draw four is an option. Another one that you see a lot is the Gathering Winds, and since Josh is playing an energy deck, he could very well, which allows you to get the top three cards with G icon in your power pack. So big energy power cards. You can keep dupes. So like he could end up with three eights in a perfect. That's very powerful.
Yeah, for sure. So we've got another Dave's running again, and I also think Dave does this sometimes. I'm very surprised Dave didn't place that Infinity Gauntlet on the Inhumans in that situation. He bet low. He knew he was going to run just to eat through 10 more of Josh's cards. And that's the other tough part about this deck, the way Dave's playing it right now. I haven't seen this deck very much, even though I train with Dave. Josh is betting conservatively. He only went two there, it looks like. Maybe he went three. I'm not sure. But even still, Dave's just doesn't care at all about conceding and making him mill another 10 cards. Dave's got a little bit of a placing advantage. He doesn't want to use it up. He's gone through a decent amount of dupes, so variance hopefully isn't going to get him. And I think, yeah, it's really interesting watching this strategy.
Yeah,
So,
Dave did just have the 5+4 any power basic universe card in his hand in that last one. And I know against me in the previous tournament, he had a ultimate nullifier. So like Dave definitely does play some cards that don't directly affect Venture, but it keeps it down. So, but he doesn't play so many that you can just like over Venture into him, right? Like you just don't know when he has cards.
yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so it looks like they both only had one card there. So Dave drops a five. Josh Mills drops a spell of protection from Doctor Strange. Always dupes if you keep it there. We call it the cursed card. But yeah, so Josh is doing a little math, and I think you're probably gonna see Dave have to fight one out here. Neither player has an event, so it's going to be a straight up fight. Josh will be able to play his three place teamwork cards. Dave generally is not as big on teamworks, especially with these kind of decks. He'll run a lot of allies. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the event from Dave discard all teamworks, no teamworks. Even though he's playing Shattered Image, he will play a low number of teamworks and float that event out there once in a while. And in
He definitely
fact,
really likes.
yeah, he really likes it. He may have even been trying to lean into that event with conceding, thinking maybe if he gets it, he would get rid of those teamwork cards that Josh has placed. So
One of these times they're going to have to play a battle here.
yeah, I mean Josh again, it looks like he only went one, which if he wins will put him at Dave only went one. I think what I think will happen here is I think you'll see Dave let him exhaust some cards and defend with everything in his hand and then try to just run without using any of his placed cards. That's that's kind of the strategy Dave goes for with these type of decks. Josh is thinking about what he wants to do.
Are we going to get an attack?
I think we're going to get a little bit of fighting here. All right, Josh decides to start going with the teamwork cards. Nightcrawler blocks it with a Bamf, six or less avoid for the team. Josh is reaching for a power card in his hand. So this will be a follow up by either Spawn or X-Man. He can follow up with the 8 and make it a 10. So first attack is going to be a 2 that'll bumped up to a 4.
I did
Dave's
like
gonna
how Josh started against Nightcrawler because of Pim Particles over there, but he seems to have switched to Inhuman.
That's actually true. I think I would definitely be trying to take out that Pim Particles. Maybe he thought he could get him to use the 8 if he didn't have another block. He didn't want him to be able to use the 4 to defend the 2, perhaps. All right, Dave's firing back with a Fairchild teamwork, and probably Dave's got the same mentality as he wants to get rid of that teamwork before his event comes up because he knows he's playing it. That might not be something that Josh is considering.
Yeah, you never really know what's in your opponent's deck the first time you play it.
Throws a classic Nightcrawler 3 multi. Dave also, really is min-maxing this deck. You'll notice that he doesn't have any intellect icons on anything he's throwing if he can help it. He's got the threes. He did end up putting the Cheshire Cat in, but he's playing all the 3 grid multi-power power cards. I think that's a result of we saw a number of people in Toronto playing the Age of Apocalypse battle site and using the avoid an attack with an intellect icon from Morph as one of their avoids. I was playing it. I know a few other people were playing it. That may be a symptom of seeing that card. He's just figuring he doesn't need the intellect icon, so he'll just get rid of it and minimize that if he sees it. Wow, Josh has a 4th teamwork, so he's firing off a teamwork from hand.
That's the new promo teamwork that you guys put out earlier this year that gives it's a 1 per deck, it's a 7 any power teamwork, acts as a 6. First attack is at +0 and the second attack is +1.
Absolutely. And this is going to be interesting. As we said, it's we're doing this after the event. We just announced our Kickstarter last night, and people were noticing that we've changed how the teamworks are going to function. So those any power ones will still be a level 6 attack when they're re-released with the new set. But the bulk of the teamworks are going to be reduced to a 4, and the follow-ups are going to be reduced a bit too. So you're going to still continue to see those see play when they're re-released. So Dave fires an ally. He goes right after that with the Inhumans 8. And he gets Josh to use one of his premier battle site defenses, the Iceman teammate avoid a numerical.
Yeah, it's always good to get those nearly like full avoid type cards out of the battle site because then you can really like once you know those are gone, sometimes you know you have attacks that are gonna hit for sure.
Absolutely. And with one of these kind of decks where there's a lot of defense, but it's very niche, it's a 9 or less, so a 10 gets by. He's got the Street Prophet, which avoids a power card. If you can get rid of those battle site defenses and count the negates that go by from the Reavers, you definitely get to areas at the end of the game where you can math it out. Yeah, so
Yeah,
this
so
is turning into a real battle.
back on Nightcrawler.
He gets
Dave
Dave to
uses
use
the
the
full
Guardian.
avoid. Yeah.
Oh. Oh, so that is the new Any Hero card. It's going to make him mill 5 from the top. Dave's going to get his 11. He's going to get his 5 multi. He's going to get a Havoc activator, a Storm activator, which could be his 1 per deck Phil was talking about, Gathering Winds, and a second Storm. So if that's his 1 per deck, Dave's just reduced his chances of being able to use it to 1 card. Possibly 2. Maybe he's playing 4 Storm activators.
Still has so many cards placed.
Oh wow! And Dave had all his any heroes this turn. He had the -5. He had the full defense and the lockout. So Dave does what he wanted. He uses a few placed cards, his teamwork and his Bamf, but he gets Josh Mills, to commit to using a lot of his place cards. So Dave's gonna go into this next one with 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 playable cards and a placed artifact to Josh's 4. So even though Josh only needs to bet 2 for the win, Dave's got a 6 card advantage. They're both drawing 10, and Dave's to the point where there's almost no cards left he can dupe on. He's basically got the 8 in the royal family. We've already seen 2 other rescue operations. We've seen 2 5s. We've seen 2 4s. I guess he maybe the Fairchild 3 as well could be one. So, oh, well, we did see another rescue operation. So maybe he's running 4. We saw a trick transport, which we haven't really seen any of. So now we'll see what Josh discards. I haven't really seen any.
Yeah, it's going to be so hard for Josh to place it.
Yeah, and this is, so Josh does have the one advantage Josh has. So Josh doesn't place, he goes 2 for the win. Uh so Josh has got to look here to really put that KO pressure on the Inhumans and try to mitigate that placing advantage. Dave's going to hope he can just sit back, rely on his card advantage, defend with cards from the hand, and make Josh concede. Dave really wants to see those 2 missions in the bottom because it's going to be that much harder. Oh, so that's an interesting play right off the bat.
That's called finite power, which they were given out as promos at this event, for everyone that entered. And what that card does is target can't attack, but it's not as much as a full one. It allows you to attack if you discard 2 cards. And I guess it was David took it, threw it out.
Yeah, so Dave's Inhumans currently can't attack unless he discards 2 cards. Dave wants to pressure X-Man, but he locks himself out. Now, what we might see here from Dave is him wanting to use that royal family as a follow-up to one of his many ally cards. So, royal family works just like a master mold. It says avoid an attack made with a special card or remove a special card hit. Finite power does count as a hit. So he could play the ally on Fairchild and then use the royal family as an offensive action to try to get rid of the spawn finite power. So Dave's throwing a
Yeah,
big chain here.
tons of intellect attacks.
Yeah, I take it back what I said. He's definitely got a lot of intellect icons on his other cards, which again is maybe why he tried to minimize him on his power cards. But Dave throws an interesting string there. He does any hero 4 intellect, a 3 intellect from Fairchild that allows her to play a teammate special, and then follows it up with the Inhumans 9 in his hand to get around the finite power that had made it so they can't attack. So Fairchild was the one attacking with the 9, which is why he didn't have to discard the 2 cards. Very, very good play.
That is really tricky, being able to get around spawn target can't attack the Fairchild. That card just comes in so handy. That Fairchild.
Yeah, it's a very, very cool card. So Josh is going for the win. I think it's interesting here that he's choosing to target the Inhumans. We know that that 8 energy is pinned offensively, so Josh is essentially giving Dave kind of a free defense there and letting him use that. Had he just pressured Nightcrawler, he could have forced a block with the 4 multi on the intellect or set him up for the KO with the follow up of the fighting. So I think when you're going for win, that's a little bit of a mathematical mistake to let Dave use that 8 defensively.
Yeah, situation. You can. Dave probably does have some cards that are sort of, so if you wanted, he might have wanted to just get rid of that 8 anyway. He didn't want to have to deal with it coming at him.
And
Just as
that's a
Dave
good point too.
expresses
Is
cards.
it might be a little gamesmanship on Josh's part. Dave thinking, well, I might as well just block it, and then I don't have to worry about getting rid of the finite power. But Josh might have been thinking in his head, I want him to do that because I don't want him to get rid of the finite power and throw an 8 at me that I possibly can't defend. So Dave's throwing a string, throwing a little 1 multi over at the Reavers. And again, you're just sort of seeing the state of this where, Dave's got a fistful of cards. Dave's still got what 7 playable cards placed to his team. So he's pretty much got a full hand of cards placed still. Josh is down to 3 placed cards he can play, and he's rapidly running out of steam from his hand. So
That's a nasty string attack right there for the end of the round.
Now, Phil, I'm interested strategy wise. So Josh does have that 4 intellect. I believe it's CIA training by Spawn. It goes against the reserve, and if it's successful, he can continue to attack the reserve. Would you have tried to get that off earlier to give a path around Spider Woman's rescue operation?
So Dave duped two specials for Spider Woman. So this is probably his last rescue operation. So in this particular case, I would just not care about it, and prefer to keep the heat up on the frontline characters. Um, I know he's going for the win, so like there is a small argument there for killing Spider Woman first, but like I don't know the pressure. He has a lot of pressure, so I guess it just depends. And in this case, going for the win, maybe you're right. Maybe he's gone, but generally speaking, once somebody dupes those two in the back, I'm probably not going to worry about going through the one. I'd rather kill a.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So I got a little bit of a peek at Josh's hand there. He's sitting on an 8 energy from Spawn. He's sitting on it looks like a 5 fighting and a negate for the Reavers. So he's not super worried about things. I mean, he's definitely still in a good situation, but Dave's also racking up that venture. Dave's got 8 venture on the board to currently, depending on how this 4 resolves, just the one from Josh's home base. Josh's home base does grant him 1 venture per turn. Dave's really debating whether he's going to let this 4 multi hit or not.
Yeah, that four multi nasty card, dangerous,
Really is.
deceptively. Dave's giving it the respect that it's due.
For sure.
Dave continues with another ally against Spawn, continuing to try to bring the possibly knock out Spawn before Josh can get all the cards off.
Yep.
Strategy.
And again, we may see that same play. He may offensively try to get rid of the 4 multi with the royal family. We don't know. You must play a special after an ally. It's required. So you sometimes see these types of plays to enable those little attacks to get thrown out. I'm also surprised on this one that Dave put the 1 multi where he did. I'm not really sure why he split that attack at that point.
Yeah, I don't know. That surprised me. I feel like that one multi would be a lot better on Spawn.
Yeah, I feel like I know Dave in his old decks had a few strategies where he wanted to keep a guy with multiple hits. I know he likes to play Deadpool's um, Knock 'em Silly, which allows it makes an opponent discard cards from hand or placed equal to the number of hits. And I'm wondering if that's just a knee jerk reaction to how he's used to doing it. So Dave does do the play we talked about. He tries to follow up the ally. He wants to remove the finite power, and that draws the Reaver's negate out. Now Josh is getting to that situation again where Dave's still got a lot of good placed cards. He's running out of steam. Probably worried about defending Spawn, but he's going to try to keep the offensive pressure on. And Dave has saved a confusion. Does not use it on those earlier teamworks and saves it for a later one. Okay. Oh, he's going to discard 2 cards.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, wow.
So Dave discarded two cards to play that teamwork as his last card out of his hand. And that teamwork had to go through Inhumans because it was an 8 energy. This is a big card. That's probably going to knock out Spawn before Josh can play that 4 intellect attack.
I think Josh has an 8 energy in hand, but I think he's kicking himself because he using it defensively kind of ensures that he's not going to win the venture here. And depending on this follow up, he's going to have to use his street profit on the 5 to keep Spawn alive. So he's doing some math. I think he's considering letting Spawn die and firing that 8 energy off offensively.
I think one of the hardest things to do, Joe, is when you're venturing for the win, you get to a point when you realize you're not going to win. To like shift your focus to what's the best strategy for me to play the rest of the hand, knowing that this game is going to like that's just so it's so difficult to do because it's so crushing to not win that venture for the win. Think the game's going to be over, and you're like willing to sacrifice things because of that, and then it just all changes. It's hard for people to come back from.
Yeah. So this is an interesting choice. He had the ability to block that, but he's choosing to get offensive. I don't really know if I agree with this because the eight just doesn't. He's got the nine or less. The eight's not going to cause a lot of offensive pressure here.
So that's for the knockout right there.
Yep, it's going to draw the nine or less. And maybe this is actually a really clever play. Well, no, because Dave can't even concede. I was like, maybe he's trying to fake him out to make him run because he doesn't want to lose Nightcrawler. But Dave's basically just got to decide which attacks he's going to let hit and which ones he's not going to defend.
Yeah, I don't know what Dave's thinking about here. I mean, maybe he has another card in his hand that he might be able to block with.
No, I think Dave's thinking Josh has two cards left in his hand. Does he want to use the premier defense on a five when he's going for the win? Dave's got a lot of venture on the board. He's got 16, 17 to basically five counting Josh's home base. So he's only 12 up. So if he uses this, it might not be impossible for him to generate it. But Dave's also sitting on the four and the six.
Dave's
So
got two more
yeah,
attacks
it's
that are going to be 10 more.
so I think Dave's. I don't think this is a crazy tough decision, but we're also not in the moment with the stress and the time running out. I think you block this. You throw both your attacks offensively and just get your damage on the board. Or actually, what I would probably do. Hmm. He could get that cosmic control rod out too.
Yeah, you could stall a little bit of time, especially if you're about to lose Nightcrawler by getting the control rod in play.
Oh, and so he had the beast activator, but since Dave's kill shot on spawn was a teamwork, he couldn't use the only universe cards to defend him. So Dave having that teamwork in his hand so late was actually kind of the kryptonite for almost everything Josh had was counting on his defensive shield.
Yeah, I mean, that was right. See that?
So Josh figures I might as well throw the eight.
Not for the kill, though. So
Not for the
Nightcrawler will
kill.
survive.
Dave passes. Oh, so this is interesting. I think Dave wasn't realizing it was he had a free turn after the eight. He should have put his cosmic control rod into play there.
Yeah, might have just oversight. I mean,
Yep,
there's
I
a
think
chance he
that's
can out it.
That's a mistake, but that's a mistake that could come back to haunt him. If Josh manages to kill Nightcrawler and he doesn't get that in play, Dave's deck is so large and he's playing so many Nightcrawler specials in general. Anyone does. But we know with the way Dave builds decks, he's gonna have he's gonna have the six int, he's gonna have the four, make an additional attack. Probably the only ones he's not playing are Power Port and the Universe card, non-numerical one. So um, he definitely wants to have the ability to control Rada if he draws a hand of specials for a dead character. So those who don't know, if that cosmic control rod, that is the red artifact that's in place on Nightcrawler, fighting to use. You play it on a character with five or less fighting. It allows you, I believe, to demote a mission in some way, and you can take six cards from your hand, discard them, and draw six new cards. So it's a very good hedge against a hand where you just draw like the most terrible hand and your opponent could go for the win. It gives you a little bit of way to get around that.
Great card in decks. This Dave's deck's already big. That penalty, getting six cards, really hurts. You. It makes you power fast for Dave. yeah, anything that involves discarding, like the image induce or any of those things, just don't have the impact on him they would.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, discarding cards are just not as big of a deal when you're running I think in somewhere in the ballpark of 80 card deck. So we are getting a little close on time, so Dave does have to start being worried about that. Dave's done a good job of, even though he's run a lot this game and sort of played strategically to build up that war chest we mentioned, he's managed to keep the bulk of his missions in the reserve mission pile. So even though Josh is 5 in the completed, 2 in the bottom, if last hand gets called, Dave has done well to leave himself in a position where he can still go for the win. It might involve him having to make a big bet, but Dave's really looking to. It looks like Josh is. Josh had some dupes. He's only got 2 cards in his hand, and he's only got 6 cards placed. So Dave's really going to hope that he can just run him through one more hand and get him to power pack. I don't think Josh has got 2 hands sitting there. I have a feeling when Josh draws his next hand, he's going to have to shuffle that power pack. So, oh, wow.
So that
So they
card's
make a,
called Medusa from the Inhuman. Stops X attacking.
and that is a huge card right here. So, X-Man has 12 Venture on him, 2 really powerful cards. And Dave, I'm assuming, gets exactly what he wants. He forces Josh to have to use that negate to get rid of the Medusa so he doesn't get 12 points of Venture lockdown. Now that means Dave knows the 9 is a lot more likely to go through. Now Josh could be holding a 9 or less avoid in his hand waiting for the 9. We haven't actually seen that many of those. Dave plays the any hero shift. Some people don't play that card. I in Dave's deck, of course, he's going to because it doesn't dupe, but sometimes that just saves a character.
Yeah, again, that's another situational card that's going to not be great for Venture sometimes. But certainly, like if that Medusa was played against Dave's character, he could move it to Fairchild, and if Fairchild doesn't attack with
And then
effective.
kind of ignore it. It almost works as a defense in that case. So Dave plays a 3. He can make multiple attacks with this. So he's playing the 9, which will be at least a +1 to get it above the. Oh, actually, Spawn's dead, so he doesn't even have the 9 or lesses. So he has to play a full battle sight card at this point. We've seen the avoid from X-Man. We've seen the negate from the Reavers. So a card from his battle sight is the only thing that can block this 9, which gets a bonus from the first Nightcrawler card. So it's a minimum of a 10 coming over. It
Yeah, I
could be
mean,
an 11 if he chose to only make 1 attack.
I thought the Angel was the reason I think it's 2 attack plus. I think the Angel avoid might be gone too.
I can't remember if we've seen it, but you might be right. We definitely saw. All right, well, it hits. So
So at least it wasn't for the.
correct. All right, so he's going to unload these cards off X-Man as fast as possible. And he finally takes down Nightcrawler. So as we said, he did not play that Cosmic Control Rod when he had a free action to do so. And if this game turns around against Dave, that's going to probably play a big role in it.
So this is the new web-headed wizard. Is this Gemini? Is that
The
what it's called?
Gemini, yes. Now,
So Dave,
technically, those artifacts are in his dead pile. So he could get out that control rods, but I don't think he has the stats to play it.
he could have gone back for Pim Particles though. I don't know that
He definitely could have. Yeah, he could have played Pim Particles to the Inhumans. But I think his attrition here is done. He's got him 1 hand from Power Pack, so it doesn't do a ton of good at this point. I mean, it could give him still a 2 card advantage every turn.
Yeah, I mean, it would be an edge for
Interesting.
Dave, like if Josh is just getting power cards.
So he got out the royal family and was sort of banking that Josh would have a special card attack. He throws the 4 for the Spectrum and he takes out X-Man. Now, Josh's deck's running 3 level 8 characters, so even though Dave's taken out 2 of them, he still has access to his 8s through Doctor Strange.
Josh got left.
We're definitely getting toward the end of the time here too. So Josh has chose to offensively play the Reavers card. Um, interesting. Oh, Dave passed.
I guess that was a fourth Spider Woman avoid. Dave's playing for them.
Oh.
That's such a large deck.
Now I'm not really sure about Josh playing the pretty boy offensively there. I'm wondering if he thought that he had to. That seems like a bit of a misplay.
Yeah, I don't know if he thought he had to, just because obviously, well, I mean, not everyone knows that if a card is placed, you're forced to play it.
So, for the audience, for new listeners, in Overpower, if you have cards that are playable in your hand, you cannot pass. However, if you have playable cards that are placed, you are not required to play the placed cards. You can pass and use those defensively. So there is, that adds to the strategy of what you place and what you don't place.
That's one of the biggest benefits of having off hold it. End
So
up
Dave dupes
forced.
on two Nightcrawler specials. They're back to only drawing 8 cards.
Yeah, I would have probably just like picked up 10 because I was so used to drawing 10. It would have been hard to like break that in. Now that card that Dave placed on Spider Woman, that's Hades, which allows the player to concede as long as they've entered 2 or less missions that battle, and then all the missions for both players go back to the piles. This is a very powerful card for Dave right now, especially with the time running out and
Yeah,
flavor.
and honestly, it's such a great card for Dave in general because this goes back to, I think Dave, just thinking about how this card works, that card's essentially a mill 8 to 10 cards. Oh, this is a bad point in the game to get that card.
Josh has maybe a reverse negate. I mean, like we said, he's basically out of
So Dave's going
cards.
to call a power type. Josh will have to discard up to 4 cards with that power type. If he doesn't have a Reaver's negate, I'm not really. Oh, he might have the Beast negate off the site still. I don't think we've seen the full negate.
Yeah, what are you calling here, Josh? You calling energy or you calling fighting?
I think I got to go with the energy. So he does have the Beast negate. Energy is going to get the 8. It's going to get the it's going to get the 8. It's going to get the activators. So if it goes through, I don't know, maybe fighting is the call just so you can KO pressure the Reavers and cause all those fighting power cards to be unplayable.
Yeah, it's a really tough call. I mean, yeah, normally deck if all the characters are alive, I call. But since we're down, well, I mean, Reavers have a 7 energy special, so that would probably towards it. But it is close.
So he plays a 5, which I believe takes away the inherent ability, but that part of it doesn't have an effect. Dave saves his royal family in hand. With the time as low as it is, too, Dave's in a very good position. He's now put himself where if he resets the venture during a last hand, I think he just is going to auto win, but he doesn't really need to. He wants to pressure the Reavers and create more unusable power cards.
Yeah, he will just knock out all of Josh's characters. Josh must be playing a slightly larger deck as well because Josh's deck still.
Josh has already gone into Power Pack. He was 5 cards into Power Pack this hand.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's a reshuffled deck. So Dave lets the Inhuman. Oh, that's not for the kill. He was gonna. That's the. Dave almost KO'd his own guy. That's only
Yeah,
15 points and only 2 colors.
definitely the responsibility of both players to stop. So there's the Hades.
Josh has already used a beast negate. He'd have to have a full negate for the Reavers, which I doubt he has. Yep, down to just power cards. And I think that seals it. So our timer was probably just a hair off, and that was the last hand. but the reset put him in a position where he could just reset for the win. And we see Dave's deck. I don't think that was the best way that would function for milling, but it certainly was effective. Even in this probably less, I don't think he got Josh would look like he was playing a little bit of a bigger deck. He didn't get him there like as fast as he probably wants to most of the time, but he still got him there, and he still had at least two hands of his own deck left.
Yeah, impressive by Dave. Always coming up with something new and creative. Fun to see.
Yeah, and Josh played great. It's I always like to tell the new players, and I've said this on the stream before. I think my first two events I won one game, and it's just great seeing the amount of, I'm hoping it's these resources, but I feel like these new players that are coming in, they're getting to a much more competitive level so quickly, and it's great to see. I know we had Lawrence was one of the newcomers who was only playing his second event, and he beat me pretty well in the Swiss and was playing great. We had a really long drag out game to finish the consolation bracket, and he's shown a ton of improvement. I know he also from the Canadian tournament got one of the passes to get some lessons. So I think Phil Keffer went online and gave
Phil
him
Miller.
some.
Phil Miller.
Oh, sorry, Phil Miller. You're Phil Keffer. Phil Miller went on and did some tutoring with him too. So doing things like that for the community has been great. It's so great to see these new players that are coming in and being competitive so quickly and getting up to speed so quickly. Yeah. All right, guys. We will see you in round 6. Thank you very much for joining us, and that's all she wrote.